I'm going to tell you how I personally practice subharmonic singing. This is going to be a very raw, unedited video, almost like a fireside chat style video. I do these every once in a while when it comes to music production or my thoughts on different things in the music world. And I wanted to do this type of video for subharmonic singing as it's been getting significantly more popular. I did post that video a while ago, I think maybe about a year ago, of how to get your first subharmonic note or learn subharmonics in under 12 minutes. And that video, I believe, at least at the exact time in this video, still ranks #1 in the world based off incognito results when it comes to subharmonic singing on YouTube. Pretty cool, right? It's pretty cool, and I love low bass singing and everything. And I've done a few more videos in addition to that in terms of how to improve subharmonic singing in terms of your skills. Myths about subharmonic singing and more. And I've got this question overall from a lot of people saying, hey, Mark, these videos are great, but how do you practice it? Like, do you have any techniques or tricks or tips? What's your schedule, so to speak, or your regimen? Almost like working out, which actually is very similar. Working out and singing, very similar, which I'll get to. What's like your regimen or your schedule? So getting right into it, I'll kind of give you like a mini history of how I got into subharmonic singing and low bass singing in terms of my overall approach, and then how I apply that approach now when I practice subharmonic singing. So first off, when I first got into it, the big influence for me, I think similar to a lot of people, especially, from the classic Oogie Boogie Man line, the Oogie Boogie song, is from Jeff from Voice Play. I heard him singing low, and I was like super obsessed with, just his vocal melodies, his crazy range too, just the texture of his voice. In addition, for me being an electronic musician, I have a big subwoofer when I produce music, like a huge, gigantic sub, maybe I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's a huge sub, right? So I use it when I'm doing low bass mixing for my own tracks. And it's funny that his voice would rattle or shake my sub the same way, say a dubstep growl or a low bass synth and serum or whatever would do it. And that's what caught my attention, being whoa, he's creating the same subwoofer effect that my EDM songs do, right? And so what I decided to do is I was like, okay, I want to start singing that low. For me, I'd say I'm more of a tenor, maybe mid-range tenor. I guess you could maybe say even a higher tenor. I don't have actually that low of a voice. I know a lot, and I want to say that too. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, genetics, of course, play a huge part into it, which it does. It definitely does. But for me, I've had a couple vocal teachers over the years that I've tested out with. Each one of them I could sing lower than. And I don't say that as a flex. I think it's because, I think for me, I trained a lot and stuff like that. So I do want to say that as a unique starting point, that I've had girls post on that, for example, saying, hey, I didn't know girls could hit subharmonic notes, and I'm hitting a bunch of crazy subharmonics. I think that's actually the top comment on that video that I first posted about hit your first subharmonic note. So I do want to say, regardless of your vocal range, yes, of course, genetics and other factors do play a role. You'd be surprised how low you can start singing and get yourself to start singing if you just practice, right? So after then starting Jeff and getting then into kind of the nitty gritty of low bass singing and subharmonic singing, what's the difference between a growl note versus say a chest note versus a subharmonic note and everything. What I decided to do, and this is what I personally did, is I picked one song. I had to sing that song every day. That was my workout. Because for me, when I approached singing, I was I'm definitely not a vocal coach. I know a lot about music, but I look at singing as a whole different realm. The difference in my opinion between the saxophone and the trumpet is this, right? Of course, the fingerings are different. You're using your mouth in a different way. When it comes to saxophone, you don't really use your mouth to create different notes theoretically, but with the trumpet you do. But it's this. But the difference between say a saxophone and singing is this, in my opinion. When I look at the different instruments, because obviously your throat or your voice is an instrument. And so when I started approaching subharmonics and everything, I was this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to treat it and look at it more like working out, right? Your vocal cords are a muscle, and I have a lot of experience in the fitness realm. So I was okay, I'm gonna take all the techniques I actually know about fitness and then apply them to singing. Rather than looking at an instrument, what do I just look at my voice as a muscle? I'm working out chest or legs or back or biceps or triceps or whatever. I'm just working out voice or vocal cords or whatever. So what I decided to do is every single day I picked one song. It was actually the same song. I think that's the best approach, at least that I had. I think that was good. I picked Jeff Castellucci's cover of House of the Rising Sun. His cover of that song is insane. I've listened to it literally, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of times. And when I started out, what I did is I was like, okay, I'm going to sing this song as close as I can. My goal isn't to necessarily be on pitch, although that'd be great if I was, right? And sometimes I was, sometimes I definitely wasn't. I'm definitely not the best singer in the world by far, right? And so I would sing that song, and every single day I had to sing that song at least a couple times. And I typically did it when driving. In case you're curious, the biggest times I personally practice subharmonics are actually when driving and in the shower. I feel like a lot of people sing in the shower. And so I do my subharmonics in the shower, right? But I'll get to that a little bit later in this video. So what I did is every single day I had to sing at least a couple times. And my goal, like I said, wasn't to necessarily sing on pitch perfectly per se. It's not like I want to have this mind-blowing vocal performance, but my goal was to, in a sense, look at it as a training workout for my voice. And I want to hit as many low notes as I could in that song. So I wasn't necessarily trying to sing on pitch. I was just trying to sing low. And I'll do that a couple times. Every single time I got in my car and I drove, I had to put that song on and I had to sing it and mirror it as best I could. Especially the low bass voice, like the low kind of bass chest notes, or the low chest notes, excuse me. Because I feel like those compared to subharmonic notes are a little bit different. I find singing low when it comes to like your chest versus a subharmonic very, very different, which I'll get to in a second. So I was doing that pretty much every day. So doing that for a while to the point where I could sing the song not perfectly in pitch, not the same way Jeff can do it, but I could pretty much hit every note in terms of the range, especially all the low notes, especially given the chest ones. So that kind of helped me kind of push my vocal cords to get a lot better at singing low, just in the realm of, I call it like chest note singing. I personally look at singing like in terms of a chest note, in terms of just singing low without subharmonics, as almost a different type of singing compared to subharmonics, right? So obviously on this channel, I focus more on subharmonic singing, even though by definition it's low bass singing, I look at it as a completely different type of singing. And when it comes to this singing super low with your chest, doing this, I could only do it a couple times a day. And the reason why is my voice would hurt, right? I mean, we all know this when it comes to working your vocal cords and everything, that if you're singing a lot, whether you're singing high, low, medium, doesn't matter, and you're pushing it just like a workout, just like a muscle, or if I work out my chest every day and I push it too hard, my muscles will actually not recover. And even if it's counterintuitive, the more you work on a muscle, there becomes a point where you actually get less gain, so to speak. You actually build less muscle. You get less strength because it's not giving it enough time to recover. Same thing with your voice. So I was very tactful and very like strategic about my singing, but I did, like I said, a couple times a day. Then after that, once I got like at least hitting all the low notes that I wanted, then I was like, I just don't get this subharmonic thing, right? I just wasn't sure. Eventually figured out how to hit my first subharmonic note, practiced it a lot, started singing subharmonics, and then of course developed my own technique of how to like learn it and teach other people how to learn it a lot faster, which gave that video and everything. So then I was like, I like my low bass notes when it comes to singing low, which is me just practicing, like I said, the same song over and over again until I could hit those notes, and then I would start to move to other songs, and that's pretty much what I do now. When it comes to subharmonics, which is very interesting, and again, this is just my perspective, and I said this before and actually in that video, I look at singing low very similar to doing a hard workout. Like my voice and my vocal cords hurt. Like I can feel it, especially like if I sing low, I can almost like feel it deep in my throat. But when it comes to subharmonics, I've never once, and I'm not exaggerating, woken up and been sore or super just like, oh man, my voice. I've never had that sensation with subharmonics. And I look at almost, at least to me, the way subharmonics affect you physiologically because the vibrative nature of them, or I'm not exactly sure what it is, to be honest. I mean, I look at it more similar to doing something like yoga or stretching. That's the way I view it, or even more like balancing, right? Like, if let's say you were to, I used to do this in parkour, go on a rail and walk and just balance and do that every day. Yeah, you might be a little sore here and there, but it's not the type of thing that is straining you in such a unique way. I find that I can practice subharmonic singing 5 or 10 times longer than, like, say, low bass chest notes and that type of singing, right? And again, the way I look at it is similar to, like, say, working out versus stretching. You could stretch every day, and yeah, you might be a little sore maybe, but like you can stretch a lot longer, in my opinion, than you can like lifting weights or whatever. And that's the way I look at both. So when it comes to Subharmonics, first off, I definitely sing and use them and practice them aggressively more than using my chest note, right? I mean, like so much more, right? A big thing when it comes to that, I think overall at the end of the day, of course, they're listening to your voice. So I do want to say that, like, I don't want anyone to like go too crazy, but for me, especially now, I'm getting to this point, again, I might as well say this too. My goal is not to be like a famous singer or to be a vocal person. Like, I still will never sing in any of my songs. And if I do, I think I've sung in like a couple of them, and I've heavily modulated my voice. And I'm not really singing as like creating a vocal line. Maybe I'll pass a vocoder through it or a bunch of effects or MIDI or something like that, right? So I'll never sing. But for me, when it comes to practicing then Subharmonics, the two big places, like I said, are pretty much in the shower and then, of course, when I'm driving. Almost every single time I'm driving, I might throw on a song and kind of still have that same approach, or just work on the vocal line. In addition, I mentioned it before in other videos. There's something like, say, if I don't sleep well, like say I'm like, ugh, I didn't sleep well, and sometimes, like say if I had a night out and I've been drinking, like say I just didn't sleep well at all, I find for some reason in the morning, I can hit the best subharmonic notes. Like I'm working on second subs now. It's funny how I can't do any second subs later in the day. I can only do it in the morning. I think because like I have that kind of morning voice. I'm like, hey, good morning. And I'm like, I'm still waking up. That, if anything, is another big time where I do practice Subharmonics. And I've mentioned this before in other videos that I find, which sounds really odd, that especially after like a night of drinking, which again, I'm not advocating for, by the way, but let's say if I just didn't sleep that well and I feel kind of groggy, I'll purposely practice a little bit more because I find I can push my vocal range a little bit harder just because of I don't know if maybe I'm still like, I'm not sure what it is, honestly, maybe because I know alcohol does damage your vocal cords, as everyone knows, right? So there's definitely some reasons behind this, but I think at the end of the day, at least for me, especially when it comes to practicing, a lot of it is just doing it a lot throughout the day as well. Like random points here and there. Again, this is taking all my kind of fitness knowledge and everything where, as opposed to me saying like, okay, I'm going to practice for half an hour and that's it. Which some people do that when it comes to working out. You can. But let's say if I'm trying to, do, improve my, the amount of push-ups I can do, right? I can either do a lot in a workout and that's it, or I can do like a bunch in the morning, a bunch maybe mid-morning, a bunch in noon, a bunch in after, so I can do a bunch of push-ups throughout the day. So my goal is at the end of the day to do as many push-ups as I could throughout the day rather than in a single 30-minute workout session. And that's the way I look at Subharmonic singing, right? I do want to say that at least for me, I've not once ever had any vocal issue practicing them at all. When I practice my chest in terms of being singing super low without a subharmonic, I definitely feel it in my voice. And of course, I have to listen to my body and listen to my voice that I'm like, okay, I'm super sore. I should not be training this past this point, right? When it comes to subharmonics, I've never woken up being sore. So I think for me, I do try to train them as much as I can. A big thing I learned as well from Bobby Bass, I was talking to him through email, is as well practicing not only the low notes in terms of singing lower. I think, I'm not sure what my lowest note I can sing right now is. The lowest note I've ever sang that I've recorded was a G0. So a full step below the lowest note on a piano is a G0 note. So that's the lowest note I've ever hit with subharmonics. I could probably go lower, but it's whatever. But in addition, not hitting the low notes, but also hitting the higher notes with subharmonics. A lot of it is just practicing, doing it over and over and over again, using those techniques, like I mentioned in that first video. But a lot of it, honestly, and I say this to a lot of people when they ask me about my practicing schedule, is just doing it as much as I can throughout the day at little bursts. Like I said, in the shower, when I'm driving. Sometimes if I'm setting up my filming equipment, I'll do a 30-second or 20-second subharmonic sesh or whatever. Just doing that, I think a lot, especially being able to slip into it super, super quick, I think is super, super vital, I think, to just get a lot better at singing, low bass singing, and of course, subharmonic singing. And then lastly, I will say, sometimes I do combine the both. There are some times where I'm okay, I'm only going to do subharmonic singing. There are some times I'm okay, I'm not even going to really deal with subharmonics. I'm just going to focus on working on my chest voice, right? So I'm singing low. And then there are sometimes I do combine both, but for me, at least for me personally, because I look at them two different things, I do like to kind of separate them. There are some times where, say, I'm only doing subharmonics. There are some times when I'm doing only low bass chest singing, but very rarely I might combine them both unless I'm practicing like a vocal line. Like, of course, in Jeff's songs, in Bobby Bass's songs, and other songs that are low bass, there are some points, of course, they're singing chest, and then they'll hit a couple subharmonics here and there, and of course, I'll mirror those. But typically, I do like to separate them as well, as I look at them as two different singing styles. But yeah, a bit of a longer video than I intended to film. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. You know, I haven't posted a video about subharmonic singing in a while. I gotta say though, it's awesome to see because I love subharmonic singing. I love low bass singing. And it's cool that low bass singing now is getting the attention it deserves. I think, especially with me being a music producer and everything, I think the big, I don't say issue, but the tricky thing about low bass singing, especially just in general, is it's very difficult given the production of it in terms of like things like phase cancellation when you involve like a lot of low end elements in a track. And I think that's why typically, you know, you hear a lot of like higher singers and stuff like that. Low bass singing, usually a lot of it's a cappella or whatever. It gets very tricky when it comes to the mixing, especially. But I think that like now, especially given social media, especially things like TikTok as well, you're seeing a lot of hype and a lot of attention now around low bass singing and especially subharmonic singing. And it's crazy too that all the videos I've posted so far on this channel have done very, very well about subharmonic singing. You know, I know I've kind of bounced around a lot. Haven't posted a video, like I said, in a while. I've been doing a lot of like music production tutorials, some deadmau streams, and some kind of like fireside chat style videos about my thoughts about the music industry right now. So I haven't really posted a subharmonic singing video in a while. I want to do this one, again, another very like raw video. But again, if you have any comments or questions about subharmonic singing and everything, definitely post them. In addition, like I said, I think the biggest thing at the end of the day, as cliche as it is just practice it as much as you can.